Hi, this is Clark on Temptress, and today I'm going to review the EBL 2000 watt power station. This one has some features that I really like, particularly a feature that would be great for the van life people. Let's start out with what's a power station. If you were going to set up a big camper or a big boat to do a big trip, you're better off buying batteries and inverters and solar chargers and all the different things and setting them up. If something goes wrong, you change out that part. If you find that you want a little bigger version of some part of it, you change it out. It's a lot like home stereo stuff in the 70s and 80s, where the people in the know bought components and then they could have it grow with their needs. A power station is exactly the opposite. It's the boombox of power. You just get it all in a box, you turn it on, and it works. There's no real installation to it. There's no engineering to it. You just have to get a big enough one. Well, that's what a power station is, and that's what this is. So this particular one has lithium iron phosphate batteries. Now, I just did a rant on that, why you want this type of battery technology and not the regular lithium ion battery technology. That's a little more dangerous, a little more chance of what we call a thermal runaway. Please look at that video. But this is the kind of battery chemistry I feel is safer. And if you're on a boat, you've got to be safer. You know my little catchphrase, you don't want your big decision in a day. Do I burn or do I drown? The other big advantage of lithium iron phosphate batteries is they have a much, much, much longer life. So you buy something like this, it should really be with you for many years. This should do service for like 10 years. The other ones aren't going to last quite as long. So whatever power station you get, make sure you know what kind of batteries are in it for your own protection in both ways. The downside of lithium iron phosphate batteries is they're a bit heavier. This thing weighs 40 pounds. I find I'm a man of 60 years old and I can grab 40 pounds and toss it around without any problem. 80, I start thinking about it and worrying about how straight my back is, but 40 pounds is not a big deal. So I think this is kind of the top end I would want to do portable work. It can deliver 2,000 watts of AC power continuously. So if you plug in any device that you could plug into a wall, you could basically run that off here. An outlet in your American house is 2,000 watts. So that's pretty close. That's why you see all those 2,000 watt sort of hair dryers. They're trying to show that they are the most powerful they can be to plug into a wall. This would run a hair dryer. The 2,000 watts is a continuous number, meaning you can just do that all day until the battery goes dead. Some things require more power for just a short period of time. Like starting a motor, you're kind of getting over the inertia, and some other reasons on induction motors. This can put out 4,000 watts for a few seconds, and then you better be down below the 2,000 or it'll shut itself down. Also, with these kind of things, modern, they don't fail if you overload them. They'll just shut down and say, hey, you overloaded me. So it's pretty safe to just try stuff. Since I'm into what it can deliver, let's look at the other things. They have lots of USB ports already on here. And these aren't just any old USB ports. I see by the labels that if your USB device can negotiate with the computer in here, these can do the normal 5 volts or 9 volts or 12 volts. And for the USB-C ports, they can deliver 100 watts. That would make them ideal for charging the small modern computers that have USB-C charging. This would keep up. I should turn its little display on. Also, it has a DC output section. It has your regular car cigarette lighter with 13.3, I guess it is, volts, and 2 barrel connectors, so you can rig up most any cable that runs off 12 volts and run it off this deal. Up to 10 amps, but 10 amps is a lot. It wouldn't even be a limitation of the device at 10 amps. These type plugs, they go bad when you try to pull more power through them. They start getting hot and then they hurt themselves. So that was a wise decision to stop it there. This section over here is one way to charge it. Now, this has an inverter, as we've talked about. It has a DC power supply. That would be this section. This section is the other direction. This is an MPPT charge controller. You can plug any power source into here from 12 to 65 volts. And it will take up to 10 amps and charge the batteries with it. Now, at 12 volts, 10 amps is like 120 watts. That's an appreciable amount of power. At 65 volts, so that's 650 watts. That's a lot. That's when you would like take a whole bunch of solar panels and put them in a long serial string, and this thing could suck up that power of like 600 watts of solar. So all of that is kind of what I would expect it to be. The display here, if I have one nit with this display is not super bright. It's probably fine because you don't like watch the display of one of these things. You put your hand over it, you get your reading, and then you're done and you go play with the devices. You don't play with the charge controller. But I found when I was working in the bright sun with it, it was really particularly hard to read. On the other hand, if it was really bright, it'd be burning power all the time, and that's not the point. Was one other way to charge it, and this is what's special about this one. It's got a normal, computer type plug here, and it plugs into the side. And when you plug this thing in to 120 in a wall socket, it will charge off that wall socket. All of the other power stations I've reviewed or seen, other people have had, they supply it with one of these, an external switching power supply. This one's for a laptop, not for this. And you're limited to what this can do. So this becomes the battery charger for all purposes. And they just plug this into the MPPT and be done with it. This box has a dedicated AC battery charger inside it, hence the direct cable. It's like, of course, Clark, no big deal. It's a big deal because this thing can suck down 1,800 watts of power when you plug it in the wall with good high voltage electricity. We took a camper trip a bit ago. We're going to take another one this summer, I think. And we had a power station with us. We didn't really know how we were going to use it much. We had one, so we took it with us and we found it useful and we would charge it up when there was sun and such. But one day we went to the laundry and we were just going to sit at the laundry for a while. And we asked and they said, yeah, sure, come on, charge it. So with their permission, we brought our power station in, we plugged it into the wall, and it charged at 100 watts. 2 hours later, we're done with our laundry. This barely got a nibble of power. If we had had this one during the period of having lunch or doing laundry or any of those things where you find yourself in the presence of a good AC power source, this thing would fill up like hour and a half from dead empty. So that's a really good thing. You could see how that could make your life easier because you could go days with this device while you're out camping someplace in the middle of nowhere. If you don't have solar panels, you're just running your power supply down. Maybe you would charge it. Maybe you would charge it off a cigarette lighter. Comes with every cord you can probably imagine. Take a look at the buy sheet before you choose, but came with this. Just plug it in the cigarette lighter of your car. But that's going to charge very slowly. So you find something you want to do in town when you're in there getting some groceries, provisioning for your next time out. Maybe you go have lunch at a nicer place than McDonald's and you ask the manager, hey, can I plug in? And usually people say, yeah, sure, fine. Well, you're going to charge this thing up fast and you're going to get some real power to work with. So we know it can power big things. We know that it can charge up real fast. How much power does it hold? Well, about 2 kilowatt hours, 2,000 watt hours. So it could deliver 2,000 watts for an hour, like running your hairdryer for a whole hour. It's a lot of power. Running littler things, it will last much longer, of course. I think the sizing of this is just about right. We've had one before that was half the size of this in every way, half the power delivery on down. I found that I had a little trouble running big power tools, like an angle grinder. It would run it, but if I leaned on it hard, it would stall out. This thing, no problem. In fact, let's run it with some stuff. It's charged up about halfway. I got something that doesn't make a lot of noise, but sure uses a lot of power. These are heat guns. They're a device for sending really crazy hot air to actually melt paint and varnish so that we can scrape it to remove it from the boat. And this will make so much power, I can run a couple of these. It looks like a hairdryer, but it isn't. This would melt your hair in a second and burn your flesh. These things really suck down power. The hairdryer, when it says 2,000 watts, that's mostly marketing lies. These really are what they are. And we're going to be able to find out what it draws because the display will tell us.
And we're not going to melt the table.
Emily wants to make absolutely certain that I point these in a safe direction. Now, just a little story here. This guy, it's a boat, nothing works right, you know? This guy's switch is broken, so when I plug it in, it comes on, and it comes on at full power. This one's variable powered. I'm gonna try to make a total power usage of just below 2,000 watts and let it go for a few minutes. This guy, I think, got left out in the rain, and it's a little touchy, so I will be messing with that for a little while, getting it set up right. Anyway, I push the button in the AC section, and that turns on the inverter. And there we go. Number 1 is on, drawing 1,140 some watts. And here goes number 2. Whoops, that's too much. We went up to 2,400 watts. Okay, I've got it using 2,100 watts. A little bit over spec, 2,300. Well, you can see it's having no trouble with it. And I'm going to shut it down so that you can hear me. In case you couldn't hear very well, we ran both of these. It used about 2,200 to 2,400 watts, little over its spec. Just ran. Right now we're hearing its internal cooling fan. Of course, when it's doing that job, there's waste heat to be getting rid of. I think I'll just take a little break and let it cool down so that I don't have to talk over it. It's not particularly loud, but you know, nobody likes to hear fans on a YouTube video. Oh, it's already slowing down. Okay, fan turned off. Didn't take very long at all. Let me show you the other thing they sent. They sent us this. This is a solar panel, and I've had a couple of these before, these portable solar panels. I'm not a fan. I'm probably on record many times for saying if you put solar panels in, when you can, use the rigid panels with aluminum around and glass and everything. They just last basically forever. If you don't break them, they last. The flexible panels, in my experience, don't do as well. They have a plastic front face, and that's in the sun all the time, and plastic and sun don't like each other. Also, the flexing just messes them up inside. They're really quite flexible. And they shouldn't be flexed, that's the point. So what's good about this is it's in the middle. It isn't glass panels with aluminum frames, but it also isn't flimsy. They've done something to stiffen it up. They probably put a sheet of something metal or I don't know what it is, but they're tough. And when you get a panel this big and you're trying to ungainly unfold it and get it on its little stands facing the sun, it's easy to drop one side and then you're just twisting it. I felt real bad about the other one. In fact, it would make little cracky noises when I would do that. This one, when you play with it, when you touch it, you can see it's a bit stouter, and I think it would hold up much better. Comes with this bag, and in here, again, is like any wire you could ever need. It ends with, well, you got the normal solar panel plugs, and then you've got this octopus, and it has, what does it have? It has this kind of adapter, which I really, really like, and I should learn the name of. I use them a lot for my own electronics. It has an Anderson connector, which are great, and that's what you would use to plug into here. It has a barrel connector for when that's available to you. And it has this, you see this in solar and in lithium batteries a bit. I believe they're called aviation plugs. But I think this would be like the big 4, and really 5, because you can always plug right into these. Under there are the specs, and it's a 200 watt panel. When it's putting out its best power, it's at 19 volts and 10 amps. Just multiply those real numbers, you come out to be pretty close to 200. I'm sure the marketers made sure that the math worked, whether it was exactly on or not, but you know, it's a 200 watt panel. 200 watt panels do not put out 200 watts unless you are in full equatorial sun at noon, you know, flat above your head. I took this out and tried it, and I did not get 200 watts out of it, but I don't blame the panel. It is what a 200 watt panel would produce here. We are in January, the sun is fairly low. I know we're in the tropics, but we're not deep in the tropics. We're right on the edge. And it wasn't the clearest of days. So it gave what I expect it to give. When you get to the beach, you pop it open here. There's some Velcro bits. It's very obvious. It just flips open. And then you have these legs. Very simple, but all it really needs to be, and that lets you adjust the angle so you've got it as flat facing as you can. Little advice whenever you're setting up a panel, particularly these portable panels, set it just generally towards the sun, but when you're choosing on the angle, look at the shadow. Make the shadow as big as it can be. If the sun were coming where my studio lights are, that would be a big shadow. And if I did this, the shadow would be a little smaller rectangle. And the shadow will tell you just really well how big or what angle you should be setting them at. Set it in the sun and you're going to get a couple 100 watts. I took this onto the beach, set it all up in the sunlight, as I said, and the only real complaint I had was it was hard to see the display. But generally, you would set it all up, you would take one peek at the display and say, yep, it's charging, and then you would leave it until you're ready to pick it up. It's basically autonomous at that point. Obviously, don't leave it in the rain, but you're not going to get a lot of solar power in the rain anyway. The other piece of advice I'd have if you buy this particular unit, it has a soft start feature. It's the only thing I could use as a name. I usually hear soft start on the other end. But if you plug a charge source in, it doesn't go bam on. It sits there for a while and then it decides that you plugged it in well, I guess, and it'll start accepting little by little more and more power. I plugged it into a generator. Not only did I see the soft start function in the watt numbers here, but I could hear it in the generator. And that's particularly good for something like a generator because you don't want to just slam the load onto them. I charged this off a 2000 watt Honda, you know, what you see out there a lot. That would be the smallest generator that could adequately charge this battery back up. And it charged just fine. And you could tell when you fired it on, you were happy that it kind of went up in its demand slowly instead of slam on. But along those lines, the first two times I plugged it in, and I said, oh, doesn't work. Tried to find another plug, plugged it in, still doesn't work. Maybe this is broken. It just takes it a few seconds to get its act together. Probably within 10 full seconds, you start seeing the number climb up. So if you get one and plug it in, just be more patient than Clark was. So final thoughts on this. Of the power stations I've had, I like this one the best. I think it's a good size for general use, but your use is what you should get. If you didn't need one this big, why carry 40 pounds around? Get a smaller one. If you really needed something bigger and you wanted to stick with the mobile power station, they have them with wheels and like a cart kind of a deal. But I think this is a good size for many uses. It would be for anybody that has a need for mobile power that doesn't want to set up a big system. But I guess once you set up a big system, it's no longer mobile. This would be great if you had a power outage or you lived in a hurricane zone where you kind of expect power outages. It'll run your fridge for a bit, you know, get everything through the crisis, I hope. It has a feature that I did not test where if you plug it into the wall and you turn on the inverter and then you plug a device in, you can do both simultaneously. That makes it a UPS, an uninterruptible power supply. And in that situation, if you had a computer plugged into it, for example, and you were using the computer, if the mains went down, you wouldn't lose your work. This would take over, finish the job. If you were someplace like here where lately, every third day, the power goes off for 2 hours, your critical device wouldn't even know about it. And that could be really good. If you're doing the van life thing, if you're doing the camping, if you're doing that long haul travel in places you don't know and just exploring, something like this is great. This one in particular, with its ability to just suck in the power, is extra great if you want to take advantage of found power. If you're setting up a big RV, you may choose to not invest in these small portable units and actually build it into the RV, because then you've got that component thing going on. On boats, mostly everyone does that, but some people still choose these. If you just want a backup power supply, this is a great thing to have in your garage for when you need it. Of course, you have to keep it charged up every now and again, but it would be for jobs where you would use a generator, but you can't use a generator. If you had a power outage for 4 hours, right on, but you can't pour gas into it, right? It's also good for shifting generated power. If you were someplace like a lot of the parks, they won't let you run a generator after a certain hour. Well, before that hour, you could charge this and maybe have the generator do some other work. Once this is fully charged, you could still use your generator if you wanted to, but when quiet hour comes along, you would have power to make it probably through the night. Thanks for listening to my ideas about this. Like I said, as they go, I got a good feeling about this one. If you think you might like one of these, please go down to the description and follow the link there. We get a little tiny taste from their end. That's always nice for us. But buy it wherever you can find the best price on it. If you like the video in general, please look at our other videos. Most of our stuff isn't like what we did today. It's more like this, what could be considered evergreen. So if you look through our backlog of work, you'll probably find other things we like. I do a lot about batteries and charging lately. But if you go further back, there's all kinds of stuff in there. Thanks from Temptress, and have a nice day.